Good afternoon, everyone. Please be seated. Routine procedures. Too many things on the go here today. So before we begin routine proceedings, for the information of all members, due to unavoidable staffing shortages, ASL coverage of today's House proceedings will end at the conclusion of oral questions. And on behalf of all honourable members and all who work at the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of the interpreters who have been working hard to ensure that our proceedings are accessible to deaf and hard of hearing Manitobans. Now routine proceedings. Introduction of bills. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. Ministerial statements. The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and what a special week it has been. I rise today to recognize the week of April 13th to 17th as Education Week in the province of Manitoba. This week marks a meaningful opportunity for all Manitobans to reflect on the historic and enduring influence of education in our province. Education Week is an opportunity to celebrate the pivotal role that Manitoba educators and school staff play in ensuring every child has a sense of belonging and the chance to reach their full potential. Across Manitoba, nearly 17,000 dedicated teachers work tirelessly each day, providing safe and caring learning environments and inspiring students through rich experiences. Together with teachers, EAs, principals, clinicians, and other school staff leave a profound mark on students and help prepare the next generation of Manitobans. And as well, yesterday was School Bus Driver Day. I'd like to give a special shout out to all of the school bus drivers in Manitoba who help transport kids safely to and from school. And as a mom of 3 kids who are bused and were bused, I cannot thank each of you enough for the care and safe transport that you provide to our kids. Together with families and communities, schools prepare young people for careers and challenges of the future, equipping them with the skills needed to become active citizens and to contribute to our province's prosperity. And Honourable Speaker, we continue to make strides towards ensuring equitable, high-quality education for all students in Manitoba. Since our government has taken office, we've added over 1,600 educators in partnership with school divisions. Honourable Speaker, that means more one-on-one time with students, smaller class sizes, and better outcomes for kids. Our government has brought in a $30 million universal school nutrition program so that no child has to learn on an empty stomach, and we've protected this program through Nello's Law so that it will continue for years to come. And Budget 2026 announced a $10 million investment for free transit for youth so that the cost of bus fare will no longer be a barrier to get to school. Our government continues to provide stable and predictable education funding with an $80 million increase to our investment this year, bringing our total funding, Honourable Speaker, to nearly $2 billion. Not only are we hiring more educators and feeding kids, but we also recognize that kids need the physical space to learn. That's why we are continuing construction on 11 new beautiful schools, the first 4 being in Brandon, Devonshire Park, Meadowlands, and Prairie Point, opening in September 2027. And those schools will come with play structures and childcare spaces to support healthy kids, healthy communities, and a strong, healthy economy. These initiatives reflect our ongoing dedication to the principle that every child matters and that all students can learn, belong, and thrive in our great province. Education Week encourages us to recognize the value of education and its relationship to the health of our communities and our workplaces. It's simple, Honourable Speaker. When you invest in education, you're investing in the future of our kids, our long-term health outcomes, and the economic prosperity of our province. So on this Education Week, I invite all Manitobans to join me in the thoughtful reflection on the power of education, the power it has to transform lives and shape the future of our province. And I encourage you all to reach out to the educators that made a difference in your lives and thank them for the work that they do every single day. Thank you, merci miigwech.
The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonny.
I am pleased to rise today to recognize Education Week in Manitoba, taking place from April 13th to 17th this year. This week is a time to celebrate the many individuals who play a critical role in shaping the lives of our children and youth. Education Week is an opportunity to acknowledge the dedication of teachers, educational assistants, counselors, bus drivers, custodians, principals, school leaders, support staff, and administrators, as well as those in childcare, skilled trades, and apprenticeship programs. Together, they form the foundation of a strong education system that supports students, families, and communities all across this great province of ours. I had the privilege of being a frontline teacher and guidance counselor, and as a former minister, I know education is one of the most important investments we can make in our society. A strong education system equips students with the knowledge, skills, and the discipline they need to succeed, not only in the classroom, but in life. It fosters critical thinking, problem solving, and the ability to adapt in an increasingly complex and competitive world. Education also plays a key role in strengthening our economy and building resilient communities. When students are supported to reach their full potential, Manitoba benefits from a skilled workforce, stronger families, and greater opportunity for future growth. Manitoba is blessed to have dedicated education professionals who go above and beyond every day. Their impact extends far beyond academics. They mentor, inspire, and help shape the character and confidence of the next generation. At the same time, we must ensure that our education system is supported with practical, student-focused policies that address real challenges. That includes reducing classroom overcrowding, truancy, and violence, ensuring access to resources, and continuing to invest in school infrastructure so that students have the learning environments they deserve. Our previous PC government made important progress by working with educators, parents, and communities to move forward with the construction of new schools throughout the province and expanded classroom capacity. We worked with Manitoba Teachers Society and Manitoba School Boards Association to create a province-wide bargaining unit that they had been requesting for years, and we brought in $10 a day daycare. These investments were about planning for growth and ensuring students had the space and support they need to succeed. Many members of this House have backgrounds in education and understand firsthand the value of strong classrooms and dedicated educators. It is my hope that the government MLAs recognize their daily dose of rhetoric does nothing to prepare our children for the challenges of tomorrow. In conclusion, I want to thank all of those who contribute to Manitoba's education system. Your dedication, professionalism, and commitment to students make a lasting difference, not just today, but for generations to come. Thank you, merci, diakayu, and megwich.
Member statements, the Honourable Minister of Labour and Immigration.
Honourable Speaker, Weston and Brooklands Residents Association was formed in late 2022 by residents who wanted to make their neighborhoods cleaner, safer, and more connected. Since then, they have brought together people from all walks of life with a shared goal to build a stronger community for everyone who calls Weston and Brooklands home. These are vibrant neighborhoods rich in culture, diversity, and community pride, and Weston and Brooklands Residents Association has helped turn that pride into action. They have organized community cleanups, hosted neighborhood safety presentations, and brought residents together around important issues like food security, neighborhood safety, and vacant and derelict properties. One of the most exciting projects they are helping lead is the Westlands Greenway proposal, which would transform underused spaces and decommission railroad tracks into places where families can gather, play, bike, and connect with one another. Weston and Brooklands Residents Association is now working to bring a year-round hydroponic farm into the neighborhood. This grocer project would create hands-on learning opportunities for youth and provide vegetables for 500 people per week, helping address food security in the community. Youth would have a chance to learn about science, agriculture, technology, sustainability, and business, all while helping to grow 10,000 pounds of fresh food each year for residents who need it most. Working alongside Grocer, they are showing what can happen when communities come together with creativity and determination. I want to recognize and thank the volunteers, community leaders, and Weston Brooklands Residents Association President Maria Fernandez and Director Michael Pai for their leadership, along with Emily Fernandez-Bushel, Bintu Touré, Victor Giesbrecht, Victoria Giesbrecht, who are here with us today. And I ask all members of the House to join me in recognizing their hard work and commitment to building a stronger future for Weston and Brooklands.
Zach.
The Honourable Member for Portage la Prairie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm honoured to stand up today to welcome the City of Portage la Prairie, the RM of Portage la Prairie, and Southport Aerospace. My apologies for having my back to you. I'm very proud to live in an area that handles adversity by striving for solutions. Southport Aerospace is a prime example of that. In 1992, the federal government chose to close CFB Southport. This was a huge blow to the Portage la Prairie region, and a committee was formed to save and revitalize the base. Today, the fruits of their labor are known as Southport Aerospace, where astronaut Jeremy Hansen took some of his training. Another example of this collaboration is the historic tax sharing agreement, a Manitoba first between the city and the RM of Portage la Prairie, which brought companies such as Simplot and Roquette to our region. Collaboration between the city and the RM of Portage also includes venues such as Stride Place Multiplex, and it is the premier sports and recreation venue in Manitoba. The city and the RM again joined forces to incorporate the Portage Hospital Foundation back in 1986. This foundation has since raised millions and millions of dollars in funds for enhancements. In fact, it was the foundation that commissioned the study that found the hospital had exceeded its lifespan and required replacement. This foundation has also set aside $5 million for the purchase of an MRI machine for the new Portage Regional Healthcare Facility. It is my pleasure then to extend a sincere thank you to the two councils that are here with us today, along with officials of Southport Aerospace. Please join me in recognizing this amazing group.
The Honourable Member for Fort Richmond.
Honourable Speaker, today I rise to recognize a remarkable Manitoban whose voice has long been woven into the fabric of hockey in this country, but whose impact reaches far beyond the rink, Scott Oake. On April 11th, many Canadians watched Scott sign off from After Hours, closing an extraordinary chapter in a broadcasting career that has spanned decades and made him one of the most respected figures in sports media. But what makes Scott truly exceptional is not only the career he built, but the legacy he chose to build through love, grief, and service. He's a legacy builder and a transformative leader. I had the opportunity to tour the Bruce Oak Recovery Center, and what I witnessed was a place of healing, dignity, and second chances, reflecting a family's commitment to ensuring others do not face addiction alone. After the devastating loss of his son in 2011, Scott and his wife, Ann Oake, transformed their grief into a mission to help others, creating the center which provides long-term addiction treatment and hope to those needed most. Ann herself became a driving force behind that work. After her passing in 2021, Scott continued her compassion, and today the Ann Oake Family Recovery Center is being developed in Fort Richmond to support women on their healing journey. What stands out most about Scott Oake is his ability to turn heartbreak into hope. He did not allow loss to close his world. He used it to open doors for others. That is the work of a legacy builder. That is the mark of a transformative leader. I invite all members to join me in recognizing Scott Oake for his extraordinary contributions to sport, to recovery, and to the lives of countless families in Manitoba and beyond. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The honourable member for Interlake Gimli.
I rise today to recognize the extraordinary success of curlers from Manitoba's Interlake region, athletes whose achievements continue to bring pride to the communities and to our entire province. The Interlake is home to Canada's reigning champions, Carrie Anerson on the women's side and Colton Lott on the men's. Their national titles speak not only to exceptional individual talent, but to the enduring strength of curling in small-town Manitoba. Both have represented Canada with distinction on the world stage, earning medals at the World Championships, proof that Interlake produces competitors who can stand among the very best. And the success continues. Colton, alongside his wife, Adriana, is preparing for their third appearance at the World Mixed Doubles Curling Championship, an impressive testament to consistency, dedication, and partnership. The Interlake's curling legacy runs deep. Athletes like Sasha Carter of Ashern, a world champion twice over and multi-time Scotties winner, and Jared Kolomaya of St. Martin, a two-time Brier competitor, reminds us that this region has produced a powerhouse for curling. But the curling in the Interlake is about more than championships. It is woven into the fabric of the community life, bringing generations together, fostering excellence at every level, and inspiring the next wave of athletes. In ranks across the region, young Manitobans are learning that greatness can come from anywhere. I ask all members to join me in celebrating these outstanding athletes that join us virtually today and help recognize the proud tradition of Interlake curling. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Lajmodiar.
Honourable Speaker, I rise today to recognize someone who has become known as the Mayor of Sage Creek, Mr. Frank Capaso. Frank has served as president of the Sage Creek Residents Association for over a decade, and in that time he has helped shape this growing community. His work has always been about building a place that people can feel proud to call home. When you speak with residents in Sage Creek, you quickly understand the impact he has had. He helped push forward the installation of a cell tower, strengthening connectivity and safety for families. He supported upgrades to Rondeau-Hamel Park, helping maintain a space where people gather, play, and connect. He supported the creation of the Capaso Pump Track, a place that has become a hub for recreation and activity in the community. I've met with Frank many times, and in one of our earliest conversations, he stated play structures should be built with schools. Because of his advocacy and that of many others, in Budget 2026 and moving forward, outdoor play structures will be included in new school builds in Manitoba. These are the kind of changes that shape daily life in meaningful ways. What stands out most is the way Frank approaches community. His work has never been about recognition. He shows up, he listens, he stays involved long after the initial work is done. There's a consistency to his efforts that people have come to rely on. Beyond Sage Creek, Frank has contributed to sport through his involvement in the soccer community. He served as president of the Manitoba Soccer Association and contributed at the national level through the Canadian Soccer Association, helping support the growth of the sport across the country. His commitment has been recognized through honors including the King Charles III Coronation Medal, the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal, as well as his induction into the Manitoba Soccer Association Hall of Fame and recognition with the Mayor's Volunteer Service Award. He joins us in the gallery with his wife, Angie. Honourable Speaker, people like Frank Capaso remind us what it takes to build strong communities. Frank, thank you for everything you have done for Sage Creek, Manitoba, and Canada. I ask all members of this House to join me in recognizing Frank Capaso.
Prior to oral questions, I first have a statement for the House. The honourable member for Tyndall Park has had her baby on April 8th, 2026 at 10:46 a.m. She and her husband welcomed a healthy baby boy into the world, Reese Leon Lamoureux Burns, weighing 7 pounds 6 ounces and measuring 52 centimeters long. Baby and mom are doing well, and little Hudson is excited to have a new baby brother. On behalf of all honourable members, we'd like to congratulate the honourable member for Tyndall Park. And I would like to draw the attention of all honourable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Candace Narth and Nash Narth, who are guests of the honourable member for La Vérendrye, and we welcome you here today. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Here, here.
Let's go over the facts. Last week, media asked the minister about Bobby Taillefer's working arrangements. On April 7th, Bobby Taillefer resigned as the Commissioner of Teacher Professional Conduct. On April 9th, the Education Minister said to reporters that Ms. Taillefer had resigned. But then on April 10th, the Premier told media, and I quote, "What's been described as a resignation was actually a firing," end quote. Both things cannot be true. Will the Premier withdraw his previous comments and apologize to Manitoba parents, students, and teachers for misleading them?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. First, I just want to take this opportunity to provide an update to the House and to Manitobans, and to thank the volunteers who are stepping up right now in Peguis First Nation and across the Interlake. Our Premier is in Peguis today, meeting with community leadership and volunteers on the ground, and seeing the work that's being done firsthand to protect homes and keep people safe. This is what one Manitoba looks like. People from across the province coming together, stepping up, spending long hours filling sandbags, building dikes, and protecting their homes and protecting their neighbors. This is what Manitobans do. Manitobans look out for one another. It's communities coming together across the province, across regions to keep people safe. So just want to acknowledge all the folks, including many folks in the
Member's
civil
time has
service.
expired, and I would just remind all members that we shouldn't comment on whether members are present or absent. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
I will table an order in council dated April 8th, 2026, a government document which states that, and I quote, "On April 7th, 2026, Bobby Taillefer resigned as commissioner," end quote. So either the Premier intentionally misspoke so that he could sound tough for the cameras, or he is fabricating and falsifying legal documents from his cabinet. It has to be one of those. Manitobans cannot trust anything this Premier or his minister is saying. I will table that proof here today for the House. So I will ask again, was Ms. Taillefer fired, like the Premier says, or did she resign, like the government's own official documents say?
Order, please. I would caution members that using words such as intentionally misspoke is inferring that someone is lying, so I would ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that comment. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
I withdraw.
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Our government's top priority is making sure that students are safe, students are protected, that they have the resources and services they need in their schools and communities. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible work that our education minister is doing with partners across the province, really and truly with the highest level of integrity. So that's going to continue to be our government's priority, focusing on what's best for students across this province, what's best for Manitobans. We're focused squarely on Manitobans every single day, and we'll keep that work going across all departments, but of course in the Ministry of Education.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
The Premier, the Minister of Education, and now the Deputy Premier's story isn't making any sense. They want you to believe that the Premier fired Ms. Talifer when in fact she resigned. If the Premier fired Bobby Talifer like he says he did because she was working in Florida, well then why did the Premier and the Minister sign another contract to hire her back immediately? It makes no sense. Bobby Talifer, according to this Premier, was fired for not working in Manitoba and then rehired on a new contract without any stipulation for residency requirements. Honourable Speaker, Manitoba, this simply doesn't make any sense. Will the Premier stand up today and apologize to Manitobans for misleading them?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Our government is focused on prioritizing the safety and protections of kids in our schools. That has been our priority from day one. And that priority was even more emphasized after the Leader of the Opposition was the poster boy for a campaign that targeted trans students. Honourable Speaker, we understand the importance of making sure that our province is a place that's safe for all learners, all students, all kids, no matter where they are learning, no matter where they're situated. The Leader of the Opposition and members on that side of the House have directly undermined the safety of kids in this province. So what I would ask is if the Leader of the Opposition ever intends on standing up and apologizing to kids in this province for making them less safe.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
When Bobby Talifer was first hired, she actually held and kept another job as the Executive Director of the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation. And the Premier had no problem with that. But the Canadian Centre for Child Protection did. They thought it was, and I'll quote, highly inappropriate and a clear conflict of interest, end quote. But the Premier and the Minister chose to ignore that. This NDP government chose to ignore the recommendation by the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, whose sole responsibility is protecting children. So, I'll ask the Premier, how important is student safety to this Premier if he's hiring people on a part-time basis who already have full-time jobs? Does the Premier think that protecting kids is not a full-time job?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, the line of questioning coming from the Leader of the Opposition is confusing, considering he has made it his full-time job to undermine the safety of kids in this province. Yep. The Leader of the Opposition is the person who has made it a point of ensuring that vulnerable kids who are already targeted in so many ways, were even further targeted in the last provincial campaign, in his recent remarks in the House. And he hasn't even done the basic decent thing to apologize to these kids and their families. I don't know about you, Honourable Speaker, but I've heard from a number of families across this province who feel less safe now because of his comments made in this chamber. Honourable Speaker, we're going to be focused on Manitobans keeping kids safe and making sure they have more resources, not less.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
The Premier has the opportunity to stand up today and fix his mistakes and apologize, and he won't even do that. Experts were clear when Ms. Talifer was hired that someone from inside the system is not ideal for this important role. Paul Bennett, who is a well-respected education professor and has done extensive research on teachers' misconduct, has said when it comes to selecting a commissioner, and I quote, "It should be somebody from another profession, a bona fide professional," end quote. So will the Premier commit today to listening to the experts and hiring not only someone who lives in Manitoba, will work full-time, and is a bona fide professional? These are three simple, logical, common sense requirements. Will the Premier commit to doing that today?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, our government is squarely focused on protecting kids in this province. And that means taking steps like ensuring that we are the leading jurisdiction, the only jurisdiction that has a free universal food nutrition program in schools across Manitoba. For all kids in this province. It means making sure that we have an additional 1,600 educators on the front lines of our education system, educating our kids every single day. It means making sure that we are building schools to make sure that we can fit all of the kids in there that we see, growing up in our growing communities across the province. And it means standing up for kids of all identities to make sure they know that they belong in this province. So we're doing the work.
Time has expired. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
5 simple questions about protecting kids and not one answer from this NDP government. None. This NDP government has left Manitobans with a lot of unanswered questions over this scandal. The Premier sacrificed his credibility once again for the cameras. He thought it would make him look tough if he said he fired her, but he didn't fire her. She resigned, and now everyone knows that, no matter what the Premier tries to say. But now families are left wondering if their concerns about potential misconduct in the school system are even being listened to. Families are concerned that student safety is so low on this government's priority that they're willing to hire someone who works outside the province and on a part-time basis. So I'll ask the Premier again, will he stand up today and commit to hiring someone who works in Manitoba, going to work on a full-time basis, and listen to the bona fide experts who have given their recommendations?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I will stack up the credibility of our Premier against the Leader of the Opposition any day of the week.
That's right.
Any day of the week. Honourable Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition has no credibility. None. In fact, there's an editorial, I believe actually just today, that outlines the ways in which the Leader of the Opposition has continued to fail Manitobans and why he cannot be trusted. And I would argue that brush paints the entire PC caucus. They can't be trusted. That's why they're sitting on that side of the House. That's why Manitobans have entrusted us with protecting this province, and that's why we have an education minister who has made sure that the registry is operational. There's a strong acting role in place, is undergoing the search to make sure that the appropriate person is in that job.
Time has expired. The Honourable Member for Portage la Prairie.
The minister has been on the job since October of 2023 and recently shared that she has housed a little over 200 Manitobans in that time. Perfect. Unfortunately, for that minister, the data is in. And according to End Homelessness Winnipeg, and I quote, "More people are entering into homelessness than existing," end of quote. Can the minister explain why, after 2.5 years in the job, homelessness is getting worse rather than better?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, and I will put some facts on the record and give an update. So we have in fact housed 217 people out of encampment. These are folks that members on the opposite side, when they're in government, put into encampments. They sold off housing, social housing. It took seconds to sell off. It's taking years to build, but we're up to that task. We are committed to building 1,640 social and affordable housing units. We've completed 252 of those social and affordable housing units, 718 more to come. They're
Member's
under
time has
construction.
expired. The honourable member for Portage la Prairie on a supplementary question.
In 1 month, 104 Manitobans were added to the Winnipeg homelessness snapshot as chronically homeless. This means that half of what the minister claims to have accomplished in 29 months was wiped out in 30 days. Can the minister explain what her government intends to do to reverse this trend?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. And again, I want to, educate that member on what it takes to actually support people coming out of encampments, making sure that people are successfully housed. Unlike members opposite who cut, slashed, boarded up our social housing, we put over 2,100 Manitoba housing units back online that they took offline. We are wrapping around support services so we can make sure people are successfully housed onto a path of success, something members opposite didn't do. We are actually putting 509 more social housing units coming online this year, and we're going to continue to do that work, unlike members opposite who didn't listen.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Portage la Prairie.
Thank you. At the pace the minister is going, it will take 99 years to fulfill her commitment to end homelessness. Does the minister stand by her government's commitment to end homelessness, or will she admit she doesn't have the answer to Manitoba's growing homelessness situation?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
I want to thank all the partners that have come to the table that are helping us to build housing right across our great province. Unlike members opposite who didn't build one single social housing unit all our 7.5 years. We are adding to that. We've approved 42 projects through the rental housing construction incentive that will help develop 300 housing units here in our great province. We've announced even more projects that we're going to continue to build support. But you know what? It's not just about building and putting people in housings. It's about wrapping around those supports and making sure that people are successful. Unlike members opposite that don't understand what it means to actually support people and help them along a continuum.
The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Honourable Speaker, the closure of MITT will cost dedicated Manitobans their jobs and their livelihoods. These are skilled workers, families, and communities that will feel the impact immediately and deeply. At a time when families are struggling, this government is offering uncertainty instead of solutions. So I ask the Minister, what is the plan to support workers and provide income during this transition?
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Honourable Speaker, as the member well knows, as we worked through estimates yesterday, folks are gainfully employed at MITT, and I want to thank the leadership at both institutions, both Red River College Polytech and MITT, for working collaboratively with us to ensure there is a smooth transition. And I would offer the member that continuing to work towards a positive solution is exactly what's happening right now, and I would urge her to be on board with ensuring that this transition supports as many Manitobans as possible to get skilled trades today, tomorrow, and in the years to come.
The honourable member for Morden Winkler on a supplementary question.
The government has stated that Red River College will take over some programs, but that represents only a portion of the MITT staff currently provides. Can the minister clarify how many MITT staff are expected to be offered positions under this transition? And is there any guarantee the remaining affected staff get hired elsewhere?
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Honourable Speaker, I want to take this House back to nearly 2 years ago when the federal government unilaterally made the decision to cut international students and make a real mess of immigration in this country. And at that time, I rose in this House to say that there would be impacts, but we would do all we could to support families. We're continuing to do that work. The transition from MITT to Red River College is going very well. Leadership at both institutions have expressed gratitude for the support, and staff at both institutions are feeling hopeful about the future of having a Red River College Polytech campus in South Winnipeg, something I thought the member for Fort White would be happy
Honourable
about.
member's time has expired. The honourable member for Morden Winkler on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, staff at MITT are speaking out because they still don't know whether they have a job. That's a huge issue. That uncertainty is not just stressful, it's hurting their families and creating ripple effects across the local economy. These are big situations. These are hardworking Manitobans who deserve clear, transparent information about their future. Yet this government has failed to provide even the most basic answers. So I ask the minister again, why has there been such a lack of clarity for MITT employees, and when can they expect definite answers about their jobs and their livelihoods?
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Honourable Speaker, once again, the member asked this question yesterday in estimates, and I provided assurances to her that there is a process that is being followed. And unlike the members opposite, we honour collective agreements. Right. We respect individuals, and we work to ensure that Manitobans are taken care of.
Order.
At the end of the day, the outcome of this process will ensure that trades training and additional training in Manitoba will be stronger, and that even more Manitobans will be able to access the training they need.
The honourable member for Lac du Bonny.
At the end of this process, Honourable Speaker, this minister will go down in history for closing down a 40-plus year post-secondary institution in this province. Honourable Speaker, I'd like to ask the minister responsible for MPI, what is he doing to improve the ratepayer service at MPI, as Manitobans have noticed that it has gotten significantly worse since the NDP have taken power?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Unbelievable, Honourable Speaker. The member who sat at the cabinet table as a minister in the last government sat by while Project Nova went up and up and up. And what did he do? He did nothing. He didn't say a word. He didn't say a word at the cabinet table. He didn't say a word to Manitobans. He let MPI crumble in front of him, and he didn't say a word. Now, we're repairing the damage. We've got a great CEO, we've got a good, solid board, and we're rebuilding trust with Manitobans. In fact, stats are showing that our customer service is improving year over year. Member opposite has no leg to stand on.
The honourable member for Lac du Bonny on a supplementary question.
On December 3rd, I had my constituents come down to the Manitoba Legislature and meet with the minister. They want to get back to work, as many of them have been victims of accidents, or they've had their licenses, for whatever reason, taken away. And the minister promised that he would investigate, and changes to the services by MPI would get better. What have they received, Honourable Speaker? No contact from this minister or the department. So I ask the minister today, why not?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
It's blatantly false and untrue, Honourable Speaker. Member opposite knows that when he brought individuals to the legislature to meet and discuss issues, I took the meeting immediately. We have followed up multiple times with those individuals. Now, if he has new casework to bring to the legislature, I encourage him, don't bring it to the floor. bring it to my office and let's get to work, because Manitobans need to know that their public insurer is there for them. That's the tone that we've set at the top and throughout the organization. They broke the trust. They put people on strike. They had a revolving door of CEOs. They had a board that was incompetent. We have repaired the damage, and we're going to continue to do that. We'll do that one customer at a time.
Time has expired. Order, please. Order, please. I would ask the Honourable Minister to withdraw the comments about untrue. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Withdrawn.
The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonnet.
No rules, Honourable Speaker. It's typical of this minister. Honourable Speaker, you can't grow the economy if the minister is unwilling to improve the MPI services to help victims of accidents with recovery issues and Manitobans, people, to try to get them licenses back so they can get back to work, Honourable Speaker. I'm disappointed that the minister says one thing and yet does another. Concerned Manitobans are watching today, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, today I am delivering a letter addressed to this minister from my constituents. Honourable Speaker, he needs to do better for all Manitobans.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Where's the 4 copies?
It's a prop.
Order. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
You know, there is a lot of work left to do to repair the damage that was caused by the PCs. I'll fully acknowledge that. Manitobans have seen how a government that is callous, that won't listen, that won't take meetings, that won't respond to individuals in a human way or even in a professional way, they've seen what the results are, and that's, I think, where this is coming from. I'll express to his constituents, every Manitoban, we're happy to work with them, we're happy to resolve individual issues, but more importantly, we're here to repair the damage, we're here to rebuild our public insurer here in this province, we're here to offer that stability and affordability that Manitobans have come to count on.
And I would remind all members that they shouldn't be waving documents around, because that's being seen as potentially being a prop, and we're not allowed to use props. The Honourable Member for Lakeside.
We have asked this question repeatedly and still have not received a clear answer. The NUPIC report makes it clear that without full funding, Winnipeg will hit wastewater capacity by 2032, halting growth, restricting housing, and driving up costs for families. And I'll table that report in the House today. Instead of partnering with the city to get this project built and protect affordability, the minister is choosing to threaten penalties. Will the minister tell Manitobans exactly how much is in this budget for the North End Water Pollution Control Centre?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We recognize that water is so important. It's important ecologically, it's important for our economy, and it's important for all Manitobans. And that is exactly why we are going to ensure that NUPIC stays on track with key milestones that we can enforce to get it, in fact, built, unlike members opposite. It's also why we brought in nutrient targets, as well as legislation to get tough on polluters. It is also why we took immediate action on the Mega Dairies project in North Dakota. Unlike members opposite, we care about water and are willing to do the work each and every day. Good job.
The Honourable Member for Lakeside.
We know the minister and likely other ministers are receiving critical emails about extending the phosphorus exemption for the city. The solution to this problem is not extensions or penalties. It is simple. Fund the NUPIC properly so it can be completed. Without it, sewer rates could rise over $1,000 per household and housing developments will stall. So I will ask again, which department will be funding NUPIC?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
We care about water. It's the bottom line, and that is why we're taking a comprehensive approach to our lakes and to our rivers, and it's also why we are protecting more of nature, including the pristine nature of the Seal River watershed. More to come on that. What was the record of the PCs over their 7.5 years in office? They protected simply 0.05% of nature. That is absolutely shameful. Manitobans expect better, and we are going to continue to do the good work every single day.
The honourable member for Lakeside on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, Manitobans deserve much clearer answers on the future of the Red River, Lake Winnipeg, and all downstream bodies of water. This government is finally going to fund Nupik, and I have my doubts. Where is the money coming from? They just cut funding to municipalities by $5.6 million, so there's no room there. The Water Stewardship Board has been cut by $648,000, same story. Will the minister be transparent today and tell Manitobans exactly where the money is coming from?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Honourable Speaker, where was this urgency and determination from the PCs when they were in office? It simply wasn't there. Just this morning, I met with the good people of Portage la Prairie, and they were talking about their water plants. And because the members opposite didn't get the job done on that aspect or on Nupik, we are going to be different. We are going to partner with municipalities across our great province to ensure these projects can come to fruition.
Wow. The honourable member for Radisson.
Honourable Speaker, in 2025, we made the commitment to build our great province of Manitoba. Honourable Speaker, it is 2026, and our government is making historic, some may say groundbreaking investments for students. Therefore, the future of our province. We have already hired more than 1,600 new educators, ensuring that students receive the attention and support that they need to succeed. At the same time, we're making significant investments to build new schools in communities across Manitoba. Can our incredible, groundbreaking education minister tell this House about the new schools under our NDP government?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you to the member for Radisson for the best question of the day. Our government is so proud to be building schools right across Manitoba. New schools, Honourable Speaker, are coming to Meadowlands. They're coming to Devonshire Park, to Prairie Point, to Brandon, to St. Anne, and to many other communities across our great province. And what's more, Honourable Speaker, every single school we build will have a brand new play structure for the healthy kids and healthy communities that we're supporting. And, Honourable Speaker, every single one of those schools is going to come with affordable, high-quality, $10 a day childcare spaces to support the families and the local economies that rely on us. That's just one of the ways that our government is investing in Manitoba's future, giving the next generation the space and the...
Member's time is up. That's right. The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Well, Honourable Speaker, the Premier's back from Ottawa, and while Manitobans are still struggling to afford everyday life, this Premier's talking about pie-in-the-sky partnerships. Instead of dealing with real relief solutions, this government is doubling down on policies that raise costs and limit opportunity. We've put forward a clear plan, raising the basic personal tax exemption to $30,000, so Manitobans can keep much more of their own money. Why is this Premier choosing bigger government and higher costs instead of real affordability relief for Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, this team is doing the work every single day of lowering costs for Manitobans. Our recent budget, of course, brought in a lift to the homeowner affordability tax credit, free childcare for the lowest income families in Manitoba. We're taking the PST off all food in the grocery store. And of course, free transit for kids to get them to school. We know for years the members opposite failed to take action in making life more affordable. In fact, they did the opposite. They raised costs for renters. They raised costs for Manitobans across the province with their hydro rate hikes that they did at the cabinet table. Manitobans know they can't trust that team, but they do know that they can trust this team to work every day to support them to lower their costs.
The honourable member for La-Vérendrye on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, what we hear now is the Premier telling Manitobans they should all join a union while forcing through the Manitoba Jobs Agreement, and the industry says this is going to increase costs, reducing competition and shutting out 88% of the workforce. And this morning, we heard another stat from the Agriculture Minister, and I quote, "This government is providing unemployment opportunities for Manitobans, more important now than ever." At a time when we should be making Manitoba more competitive, this government is doing the exact opposite. Why is this Premier pushing policies that make it more expensive to build, invest, and create jobs right here in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We are building Manitoba, Honourable Speaker. We are making sure Manitoban workers are the ones who are building those ones. Manitoba Jobs Agreement means good jobs, fair wages, safe work site, and real training opportunity on a major public project, Honourable Speaker. We are turning construction site into training site, Honourable Speaker. We will continue to listen to the workers, Honourable Speaker. Every single person who works on MJA is better off because of MJA. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La-Vérendrye.
Honourable Speaker, so that we don't have to increase unemployment opportunities like the Agriculture Minister would like us to see, we should follow other provinces in streamlining the approvals process through a single desk model, giving investors clear timelines and one point of contact. Manitoba still has a maze of departments, delays, and uncertainty. The result is predictable: delayed projects, lost investment, and fewer jobs for Manitobans. Why is this Premier making it harder to invest in Manitoba when other provinces are rolling out the red carpet?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I don't know if the member for La-Vérendrye has been paying attention, but our Premier secured a phenomenal, historic agreement with Prime Minister Carney this week for the Port of Churchill. And Honourable Speaker, Manitoba is leading the country in creating jobs, creating more jobs than any other jurisdiction in this country. Honourable Speaker, we are taking a one Manitoba approach. It's a shame that on that side of the House they're focused on division, they're focused on taking us backwards, not forwards. On this side of the House, we're focused on Manitobans, first, foremost, and always.
Great job.
The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonnet.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So on this side of the House, we believe in student safety in this great province of Manitoba, and we also believe in a full-time commissioner for the teacher registry. It's unfortunate that the Education Minister, instead of standing up and apologizing for her boss, the Premier of Manitoba, she decides to double down and says, and I quote, "dealing with a commissioner that needs to be dealt with," end quote. That's what she did. I'm giving her one more opportunity. Stand up, put it on the record that she apologizes to the fact that the Premier went against an order in council, which is a government-produced document.
Yeah, good question.
The Honourable Minister of Education and the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I certainly very much look forward to working with our new interim commissioner that was appointed The hunt is underway for the permanent commissioner, who I also very much looking forward to working with, because that's what on this side of the House, as our Deputy Premier has so eloquently articulated, what we're focused on this side of the House is working for Manitobans, producing results for students and for families. And that's why we know on this side of the House that the best investment we can make is in the next generation of young learners. So after years of cuts to classrooms, our government has increased school funding above the rate of inflation for a third year in a row with a 3.5% increase to school funding this year, Honourable Speaker. We're funding public education at nearly record levels.
Expired. The honourable member for Lac du Bonnet on a supplementary question.
So I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. David Yeo on his appointment as the interim commissioner. Mr. Yeo has a long, dedicated track record of serving Manitobans within the education sector, and so I would like to personally thank David for his years of work in the education department, and congratulations on him being appointed as the new commissioner. So I would like to ask the education minister, she's had multiple questions. Stand up, please, and apologize for the fact that the education minister said that the commissioner resigned. The premier said that she was fired. We know the truth. I'd like her to put it on the record. Apologize to Manitobans, students, parents, and guardians.
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'm glad to hear that members opposite agree that today in Manitoba we have an excellent interim commissioner in David Yeo. I couldn't agree more. Manitoba students are safer today thanks to the leadership of this government and thanks to our interim commissioner, so we thank him very much. Again, our government is focused on serving kids. That's one of the reasons that one of the first things we did under the leadership of the great Nello Altamare was bring in a $30 million universal school nutrition program to make sure that every kid can come to school. We've made some further investments, Honourable Speaker. Just this year, we also invested $3 million to the Child Nutrition Council, thanks to the leadership of the best Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations in the country.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Lac du Bonnet on a final supplementary question.
So, Honourable Speaker, yet once again, the minister will not take accountability. She wants to point fingers not only at Mrs. Telfer, but also to the Department of Education. It's unfortunate, it's unbecoming of a Minister of Education here in this province. So I'm going to ask the Education Minister, so the contract that she had signed with Mrs. Telfer, which goes from April 13th to July 13th, 2026, for the transition, is that still valid? Or what is happening? Manitobans, students, parents, and guardians would like to know, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, our Minister of Education is doing a phenomenal job and will continue to do a phenomenal job. We have full faith in her. Full faith in her. But I want to take a moment. I'm really disappointed to see that throughout this entire question period, none of the PC MLAs, none of the critics have stood up and asked questions highlighting the fact that we've got a delegation from Portage la Prairie here. Incredible representation here that should be acknowledged, that should be thanked for what they do. And I just want to reassure all of the representatives here from Portage la Prairie, including Mayor Knox, that we're going to continue to work with you to make sure that your constituents and those in surrounding communities have their needs met. Thank you for meeting with our ministers. Let's keep working together to make Manitoba better.
Here, here.
The order, please. Order. The time for oral questions has expired. Order. Petitions. Grievances. The honourable member for Portage la Prairie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm bringing forward a grievance regarding health care in Manitoba, and specifically in my constituency of Portage la Prairie. In 2019, the Portage Hospital Foundation, upon hearing from hospital staff about deteriorating conditions at the existing Portage District General Hospital, funded a structural and functional assessment by engineering and architectural specialists. That study indicated the hospital structure was outdated and did not meet today's standards, necessitating replacement. This hospital is not just old, it is literally falling apart. It is a hazardous workplace for staff who have been caring for patients in a building that has black mold, is infested with mice and cockroaches, and has a leaking roof in the OR. Thankfully, in 2021, former Premier Brian Pallister announced that a new hospital would be constructed in Portage la Prairie. And on January 14th, 2026, 3 months ago, it was announced that construction of the Portage Regional Health Facility was completed. The two-story building at 275,000 square feet houses 114 acute care beds. The move into the new facility was scheduled for fall of 2026. Mayor Sherilyn Knox noted that specialized services that once required a trip to Winnipeg will now be available right here in our community, stating, and I quote, "This hospital is for the whole region. It's about making sure people can get the care they need closer to home, and that's something worth celebrating." Unfortunately, the celebration is over before it's even begun. The government last week informed staff at Portage District General Hospital that the opening date of the new Portage Regional Healthcare Facility would be pushed back by 6 months to next April. No reasonable explanation was given for this delay, and in fact, the government seems confused about the reasoning itself. Initially, staff were told that more time was required for training and systems implementation. Not long after, the Premier and the Minister insisted, no, the delay is due to staffing shortage. So what is it? Well, a staffing shortage can only be blamed on the current government's poor planning. There is no truth to the suggestion that the staff needed more training time. The on-time completion of the building ensured that the staff would have 8 months to train for the new systems and be 100% ready by moving date in October. The announcements that the opening would be delayed by 6 months came as a complete shock to staff who have been working in unsafe, unsanitary conditions for far too long. These dedicated health providers have been holding on by a thread, counting the days until he could move into the new facility. I think we can all agree that poor working conditions are counterintuitive to staff recruitment and retention, which is something the NDP have insisted they care about over their 2.5 years in government. And yet, instead of owning up to the fact that their lack of foresight and planning is the reason this unacceptable delay, the NDP are still trying to blame the former PC government, without whom this facility would never exist. I also want to point out today that a number of people aren't in the chamber here with us today. Over the past number of days...
Order, please. You cannot indicate whether members are present or absent, so I'd ask the member to apologize for that.
My apologies.
Thank you. Honourable member for Portage la Prairie.
Over the past number of days, I've spoken to countless staff from the Portage Hospital, and their shock and disappointment has been nothing short of heartbreaking. Many tears have been shed by doctors, nurses, yes, but also by lab techs, receptionists, healthcare aides, cleaning staff. All are equally upset and discouraged. These are human beings who are feeling betrayed, unheard, and unsafe. It truly speaks to the utter disconnectedness of this government that they are either completely failed to consider how this would affect staff already suffering burnout from spending long hours under terrible working conditions, or they just don't care. But it's not just about the staff. Let's talk about the patient safety and care. In Portage la Prairie, we have a brand new state-of-the-art healthcare facility ready to open this October. It's been completed and the keys handed over to the government to allow adequate time to work through any deficiencies for staff training and recruitment. There are 114 brand new beds waiting for patients. Our existing hospital, on the other hand, is literally falling apart at the seams. This means the patient care is suffering. Given the imminent opening of the new facility, things that need replacing in the old facility are not being invested in, like bathtubs. Currently, one floor of the hospital has a broken bathtub, meaning patients who are under care cannot have a bath. It's simply incomprehensible that the Minister of Health and the Premier of Manitoba believe it is acceptable to house sick patients in a facility where their hygienic needs cannot be met. The community and surrounding area of Portage la Prairie also deserves better from this government. The generosity of our citizens have made it possible for the Portage District Hospital Foundation to pledge $5 million towards an MRI at the new facility. Yet this NDP government has thumbed the nose at every time they offer. The foundation is also the steward of $200,000 donated by the local chapter of the Pink Ladies Ride for Cure, raised specifically for breast cancer diagnosis and prevention. Yet this new facility includes neither an MRI machine or a mammography machine. This equipment can ensure earlier diagnosis and treatment and saves lives. Yet the government stubbornly refuses to accept a gift of $5 million. That's correct, Manitobans. A gift of $5 million to install an MRI that will shorten the ridiculously long and growing wait list. The fact is there's absolutely no justification for delay in opening the Portage Regional Healthcare Facility scheduled in October. The reason for the delays seem obvious. The government has bungled its finances so badly that there's simply no money in the budget to make the transition. It's no coincidence that the opening has been pushed to April after the fiscal year end. But Manitobans are tiring of the spin. The NDP spin is putting on healthcare messaging, talking about net new nurses and fixing healthcare, yet letting a brand new facility sit unused. The Premier has publicly stated his government inherited the Portage Regional Healthcare Facility, and it's clear this facility would not exist without the foresight of the former PC government led by Brian Pallister. It seems obvious that the government doesn't care about citizens in my constituency. But what is truly frightening is this government seems oblivious to the fact that better health care in Portage la Prairie will alleviate pressure on the whole system. A new, larger hospital will mean fewer patients traveling to HSC, St. Boniface. Diagnostic equipment in Portage la Prairie will reduce pressure on places like Winnipeg, Dauphin, and Boundary Trails. The NDP likes to use our 7.5 years as the reason they're failing to make progress in healthcare, and yet cannot explain why over the past 2.5 years they've been in government, they have done nothing to help. And in the end, a brand new hospital continues to sit empty because of this NDP government. I'm sorry that this healthcare system, this healthcare facility sits empty. I'll get called up.
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. I made a small error earlier when the member stood to apologize. I failed to recognize him again, but I would just like the record to actually show that he did in fact apologize. No further petition or no further grievances, then orders of the day. The Honourable Government House Leader. Government business, the Honourable Government House Leader.
Which Honourable Speaker, can you please call the start of Committee of Supply?
It's been announced that the House will now resolve into Committee of Supply. The Honourable Deputy Speaker will take the chair.
Okay. Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Finance. At this time, we invite ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber. Could the minister introduce the staff that are joining him?
Asking about this year. Or...
Minister of Finance, introducing the staff.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, happy to do so, and happy to reintroduce my DOMA, Director of Ministerial Affairs, Paul Brescher, and our team member from Treasury Board, Jeff McCulloch.
Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. So we have staff member Levi Cottingham with us.
As previously stated, in accordance with Sub-Rule 78(16), during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. As we know, the MLA for Midland unable to be here today, so we started in on estimates for finance yesterday, so we'll try to pick up where she had left off. But there may be a bit of overlap, so excuse me for that. I want to start off with what's become a reality of Manitoba's dependency on transfer payments for the federal government, and our dependency in general on the federal government. Now we're seeing more than 1/3 of Manitoba's revenue coming from federal transfers. And I'd just like to ask the Minister how that is a sustainable economic model for our province.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So appreciate the question. What I can share with the member is that when we came in, we inherited their structure, of course, 23-24. And in that year, it was a 33% of overall revenues. It's a percentage of revenues for Manitoba. This year, we're roughly at the same, at 36, so just a few points higher there. And of course, you know, as the Premier is committed, we want to make Manitoba into a have province. And so that's the important work that we're doing when it comes to advancing project in Churchill. We know that the Premier has been successful in partnering with the feds, and we're now bringing in over $200 million in investment to support Arctic Gateway Group and more investment in that opportunity. And of course, our recent budget also brought in a $10 million commitment to support Churchill Plus, which is going to help us to bring more private sector capital to bear in the potential development of an energy corridor that would help to support bringing Western resources to Europe and beyond, and perhaps commodities and otherwise in through Churchill into Western Canada. So that, I think, shows our vision and our, you know, one of the, obviously the big projects that we're helping to move forward. But I think in addition to that, it's worthwhile and a value to talk about the broader work that we're doing to help support the growth of wealth and job creation here in our province. I'll talk briefly about a couple things other than, of course, Churchill, which is our biggest priority project to create good jobs here in Manitoba. There's been so much good work that's happened over the last 2 years in a very short period of time. One thing that I'll speak to maybe first, because it's near to my heart as the Hydro Minister, is the important work we're doing on energy. If I think about where we were when we came into government, we were in a position where there were real concerns about energy capacity in the low 2030s, and that was a direct byproduct of the former government's failure to develop any new energy at all. So of course, I don't have to share with the members that if you don't have the energy you need to support business growth or investment, you're in a pretty tight position. So that was a pretty firm bottleneck that we saw when we got in terms of more economic growth, making Manitoba into a have province. And we've responded to that in very short order. We brought in our affordable energy plan. We're already moving forward with 600 megawatts of new wind development in partnership with First Nations and the Métis Nation. We're going to make sure that we have the energy we need to keep growing. So I think that's a sort of important foundational first layer. I also want to talk about some of the other really important things that we've done so far. For example, bringing in a critical mineral strategy. We know how incredibly important critical minerals are to our future economic growth. We're proud to be doing the work of unlocking that opportunity and to be encouraging investment in bringing those minerals out of the ground, and to be supporting the ability to do that in a way that's the most environmentally, labor and climate friendly way that those minerals can possibly be extracted. So we have this unbelievable opportunity, and we're leaning into that with that strategy. And I think the centerpiece of that strategy is the creation of a single door approach, where investors know they can come to Manitoba and deal with one single desk that will help them navigate provincial, federal, municipal, and First Nations related contacts and help to support them navigating those social, environmental, regulatory processes. Proud of the opening of a gold mine. We know that there's a potash mine opening soon in southwest Manitoba, and we know that there's a lot of other mines that we're hoping to see go live in the years to come, thanks to the work we're doing and leading into that opportunity. So I share that again by way of speaking to, I think, what is clearly one of the foundational major growth opportunities that we have, and the world knows that we have what they need, and it's exciting to see the progress that we're making on that. Of course, we talked about Churchill, but we are making those important investments in trade supporting infrastructure, like investments in Centerport, which we know is a phenomenal multimodal port that's going to help Manitoba to lean into our historic role as a place through which stuff moves to the world. We think about our previous role as the gateway to the West. Centerport and those investments unlock those future opportunities to lean in to our strategic position centrally here in Canada and to, again, create a lot of opportunity and new investment here in our province. You know, I'm running out of time, so there's so many other things I can speak to in terms of the important work we're doing to lay track to continue to see more major investment here in our province. But I'll maybe save that for a future answer to treat the members opposite to more insights into the good work we're doing to support economic growth here in Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Yeah, and to that, I think while we're speaking to the transfer payments and the future growth of our economy, we're really focused on this year's budget to see where that direction will come from out of the budget. In the last 2 years, we see that the federal transfer payments have increased by approximately $1.8 billion, if I'm correct. But the minister can clarify that. Is identified 33% increase in transfer payments. That's substantial. We had also heard from the minister that the Port of Churchill is one of the projects that their government feels will offset our dependency on federal transfer payments in years to come. Within the budget, we don't see any clear commitment to budgetary commitment for the Port of Churchill, any projects that would support the growth and development of that in the immediate years to come. In fact, the Premier had mentioned numerous times within this chamber, on the official record, as well as out in the public through the media, that the Port of Churchill is a generational project. And I think we understand that as being something that will not steer the financial position of our province overnight. Definitely won't be in this fiscal year. So I'd ask the minister to point to what exactly is being done in Budget 26 that would support the growth and development of the project in Churchill. But along with that, more importantly, and I don't want to pile on too many questions because the minister didn't have the opportunity to completely finish answering the last question. But together with the answer of Port of Churchill being the silver bullet to cure the economic dependency on the federal government, what's the contingency plan if we see a continual slow to our economy? We see very meager performance in the provincial economy over the last 3 budgets. Over the last 3 years, we're now leading the country in one of the least performing, not leading the country in one of the highest performing economies, with GDP growth identified as around 1%. So if we were to have a continued slowdown of our provincial economy, is there any plan for how we would be able to offset transfer payments if something would happen federally or with the other provinces that we wouldn't be able to expect the same amount of transfer that we currently have?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So appreciate the question. I'll start with a clarification, just because in the member's question there, he'd made a statement. I just want to make sure we're crystal clear. In the last year of the former government, the total transfer payments as a percentage of overall revenues were 32.9%. For us, they're now up to 36. So effectively, it's approximately 1/3 revenues, marginally higher than they were under the former government's, again, last budget. So I just want to clarify that. But to the other questions that were posed, so one, in regards to Churchill, I know the member noted that he hadn't identified any Churchill-related investments in the budget. But as I mentioned in my previous answer, the budget contains not only over $200 million in new investments in AGG in partnership with the federal government, but also a $10 million Churchill Plus Fund. Now that Churchill Plus Fund is specifically focused on trying to do the work of bringing in investment towards that energy corridor that we've discussed. That is also being supported through the standing up of the Manitoba Crown Indigenous Corporation. And all of this is about focusing on the standing up and development of an energy corridor that would ultimately lead to Churchill. And so I think those are, that's a sign that our government is serious in trying to ensure that we do what we can to bring in that investment. And a lot of really important work is happening in the background with the relevant companies that I think one would hope to see us engaging around those opportunities. More broadly, I mean, our Premier has been super clear about our goal, which is to make Manitoba a half province. And so I do appreciate the question from the member, which is, is Churchill the entire answer? And I would say that we've never communicated that it is the entire answer to ensuring that Manitoba can become a half province. It's a piece of that larger picture. In my former answer, I was happy to outline, I think, some of the building blocks that we're putting in place that I think are going to be important to long-term, serious economic growth. And when we look at Manitoba and we look at how we move forward and how we create, bring in that investment and create that growth, I think it's clear that it's about leaning into our strengths. And our strengths, as Manitobans know, and as people know around the world, is first of all our location and the transportation and logistics opportunities that brings. The minerals that we have in the ground, we've got 47 of the world's 50 critical minerals. I think we've leaned into that to ensure that we're taking advantage of those opportunities, again, to bring in serious investment into Manitoba to unlock that opportunity. And of course, all of that is supported with the important investments and work we're doing to ensure that we have the energy we need. But I'll also talk about some of the other things. Again, it's not just about Churchill, it's about critical minerals, it's about the work we're doing to invest in trade supporting infrastructure. But there's some other really exciting things happening too that I'd speak to. One, I think that $3.8 billion capital plan that we announced in budget is critically important. We know that to take advantage of the opportunities we have with new Canadians that have moved here, we have to unlock that opportunity and that potential to help them grow, help their families to root here in Manitoba through investments in important community infrastructure like new schools, ensuring that we have the resources that they need to decide to make a life in Manitoba. So I think of those as important economy enabling investments as well. Beyond that, I'll speak to, last year we announced important investments, increases in investments in tourism. We know Manitoba is an incredible place to be. We want to bring in as many of those dollars from out of province as we can to bring in people to visit our beautiful province. And I think that leaning into that is, again, one more piece of the work we're doing to unlock more growth. And then, of course, we've heard a lot about issues with access to capital for many years in Manitoba. And I think we're making really important steps on that front to increase access to capital and encourage more investment. And I'd speak to the great work that's happening with modifications to the small business venture tax credit that is drastically opening that up. It's going to see more investment, more, I think, VC interest here in Manitoba. We're seeing our tech sector is very frothy at the moment. I think folks are super excited about what that promises. And that's in addition to changes we made to our accredited investor definition. Why is that important? Because that's going to help to ensure that even more people in Manitoba can invest in local startups, local companies, again, solving some of those challenges that entrepreneurs were seeing about access to capital, especially at the smaller cap side of things. So again, proud to outline, I think, a lot of the exciting work that we're doing. This isn't just about Churchill. This is about so many things, and there's so many incredible opportunities that we can advance, and I hope that the member sees that we're doing the work to make sure we create investment and more growth here in our province.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I just wanted to clarify that the stat that the Minister shared of 47 out of the 50 critical minerals was actually 30 out of the 34 critical minerals, and 47 minerals was the actual statistic that he was wanting to share, just to clarify the record. But further to that, I'd like to ask the Minister if it is a consideration because of how dependent the province of Manitoba has become on the federal government, especially as we've seen in the last 2 years, specifically since 2023. The dependency growth on and reliance on the federal government has become so substantial to the province that this has to be a consideration for the minister when growing the economy, because it's a balancing act between growing the economy and potentially losing transfer payments, or continuing to have the provincial government performing at the weak level that it is. So I'd like to ask the minister if that plays into consideration when deciding whether or not to make moves on creating and developing policy that could further expand and develop the economy of our province. Things like reducing taxes for businesses, reducing taxes for individuals, things like reducing the personal tax exemption, and also further supporting businesses. These are things that lending institutions, investors, as well as the businesses that we have operating and looking to expand in our province have identified as of areas that need improvement, and areas that could see the benefit of substantial growth if this government would entertain those changes. So again, my question would be to the minister: are these deciding factors in whether or not to make Manitoba more attractive to businesses and also make life more affordable for Manitobans? Is it a decision that's being made right now between potentially limiting our transfer payments or expanding and growing our economy?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So I think that one of the first things we should speak to is the fact that, when we came into government, in terms of long-term economic growth and policy decisions from the former government to support that type of growth, I regret to say that we came into a context where not only did we face the prospect of not having the energy we needed, the electricity we needed to meet the needs of a growing economy, but there was no evidence of there having been any work to ensure that we had long-term sort of economic investment in Manitoba, no major projects to speak of. And so that did leave us in a position where we were starting from a more challenged place. And so, I just want to make sure that on the record here today, we talk a bit about the reality of where we were when we got in, and I think that speaks to the great progress that's been made. When it comes to transfers and sort of the questions I'm hearing from the member opposite, I would say that the Canadian health transfer and the social transfers are important and obviously underpin our ability in many ways to cover costs associated with a lot of the services being provided to Manitobans, just like provinces across the country. And in fact, just like provinces across the country, when it comes to the health transfer, for example, which is currently at 5%, but slated to go down to 3% elevator, I think it's in 27-28, we're advocating for them to keep it at that 5% because we do feel that when it comes to the health transfer and the social transfer, there's a contract there, and we do need to see adequate levels of support from the federal government in helping to support those costs, just like they do across the country. To the broader question, I understood the question from the member to be focused around, are we actively making decisions that will preserve us being in a position of being a recipient of bigger transfers? What I would say to that is our focus is delivering on what the Premier's commitment was, which is to make Manitoba into a have province. So I talked a lot about already some of I think the important work we're doing on that front, whether it's Churchill, whether it's critical minerals, whether it's leaning into our logistics and transportation opportunities. I strongly believe that we are showing the way forward when it comes to ensuring that we unlock those opportunities. And we are focused on creating jobs and creating opportunity. And I think one thing that speaks to that, in Canada, there were 16,000 jobs created last month. 10,000 of those jobs were in Manitoba. And so I think that that speaks to some of the momentum that we're seeing being generated here through our work. We're going to keep working to ensure that we set the stage and we put the foundational blocks in place for long-term economic growth. I'm sure something that the member is himself wanting to see in our province. If he's got other specific areas of economic opportunity that he feels we should be leaning into, I'd be curious to hear him maybe offer some of those thoughts today as part of our estimates discussion. But I think from an objective standpoint, it's hard to look at the work we're doing and not agree that we're really leaning into any and all of those strategic vectors, opportunities that parties want to see us lean into as a province. I can share that when I go and we do our investors tours and we meet with investors and credit rating agencies, we hear about the opportunities as they see them in Manitoba, and we hear great feedback about the fact that we're leaning into those larger vectors, those big opportunities. And again, we're proud of that work. There's more to do, certainly, but it's important to remember where we were, which is in a position of relative stasis, to now in a position where we're seeing momentum. We're laying down the foundational blocks. And I think it's inarguable that we're making good progress on that front. So again, invite the member if there's areas where he thinks we're perhaps not leaning into that we could otherwise maybe see some opportunity, invite him to offer those. But I'd be really curious to know where he sees gaps because, again, I think we're leaning into every single opportunity we have here. We're doing it in a good way, in a strategic way, and in a way that will hopefully see continued momentum and growth here in our province as a result of that. So with that, I pass it back to the member.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'm hearing each and every day from Manitobans across our entire province, those that are looking to expand and further invest in our province, as well as those that are looking to make new investment in our province. That I think we've been identified on a regular occasion of a very diversified economy here in Manitoba. So there isn't any one specific large industry that any investor will point to in Manitoba. We've got great opportunity, but we don't have a track record in this province of any single item or select few large-scale investment items in our province. The problem is that the independent startup businesses that we're so proud of, the Versatile Tractors, Westfield Industries, Maple Leaf Foods, You know, those that have started out as small independents and have grown into worldwide leaders started out as a small business in Manitoba. And right now, those businesses, the new generation of those businesses, are feeling that they're being ignored by this NDP government. They look at a complex and convoluted process to obtain the approvals and the permits to grow and expand and develop their businesses. And I think that's where we're really lacking some opportunity. And what led me into my question prior is that it almost seems intentional to keep the opportunity of our province limited so that we don't jeopardize the dependency on equalization payments from the federal government, because if you grow, you really need to grow. And it may be a scary place for this government to take that risk. So my pointed question here, Honourable Chair, is the equalization payments that we're currently receiving from the federal government, would it be an elimination of those payments for the minister to consider our province as a have province? So the minister has made a number of comments saying that the goal is to see Manitoba as a have province and not a have not province. So at what point does that mean no more equalization payments? Not transfer payments in general. I'm not talking about the health transfer or social transfer payments, but just equalization payments. Would that be the point where the minister would consider Manitoba a have province?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Just to answer the question simply, by definition, not receiving equalization payments makes us a have province.
The Honourable Member for La Ronde.
Chair, and that is exactly the answer that I was expecting, because I think that's the answer that everyone could agree on, whether it be economists, lenders, or Manitobans. And I think it's the goal that everyone desires. So since we speak of that, and knowing the position of the province right now as one of, if not right now, the largest per capita recipient of equalization payments, when does this minister and the government see that Manitoba would become a have province?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Appreciate that. So I think, you know, the question of achieving that state of being a have province starts with us righting the ship. And of course, the member will know when we came in, we inherited a $2 billion deficit, which was quite a challenge for us to navigate and for Manitobans to navigate. And so we're starting the journey towards getting to this destination by fixing the mess that we had to clean up. And I'm really proud of the fact that when we started, we inherited a $2 billion deficit. One year, we reduced that by 40%, which was, I think, an accomplishment in its own right. And then just jumping ahead to the budget we just released, we just posted the lowest deficit by GDP of any province in the entire country. And I think that is something that we can be incredibly proud of. That didn't happen by accident. That happened through significant effort, not only on the part of the amazing folks supporting us in Treasury Board and Department of Finance and the entire, of course, government team, but through a lot of really hard work that happened, of course, on the political side, through our teams really bringing in a very focused approach. And with a $498 million deficit posted, that would be a 75% reduction on the deficit we were left when we came in. And this, of course, all leads towards a balanced budget next year. That's the beginning of this journey. I want to remind the member about where we were when we got in. Not only did we have this horrifying deficit position that we inherited, but we also had, again, nothing in the way of projects, nothing in the way of momentum. That was a pretty difficult record to inherit. And, if there's things that the member wants to share that to clarify where or how I'm incorrect in those assertions, I invite him to offer those. But I can say, as somebody who had a pretty good line of sight on where we were when we got in, it was pretty tough sledding. We inherited quite I'll say a challenging situation. And it's kind of amazing to me that in only 2.5 years, we've turned this ship around. And we took a very difficult fiscal position. We took a lack of vision and foresight about where we needed to go as a province. And we've now brought that to bear. We've brought, I think, an exciting vision for One Manitoba with a lot of, I think, really exciting economic direction. We're now writing our fiscal position and are, again, 75% reduction relative to where we were when we got in, heading towards a balanced budget next year. I would say, instead of, at this point, working to identify what that far-off goal is, which we are pursuing, right now the focus is on cleaning up the mess that we were left and righting the ship. I think we've done great work in doing just that, and excited about the continued progress we're going to make as we head into our next budget.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. And as much as I appreciate the answer, I'd like to clarify that under the previous PC government, the most recent PC government, they saw 2 actual balanced budgets, and those are real results. I don't think that there are many Manitobans that are looking at the financial position through the last 2 budgets that we've seen the results of, and now the 3rd NDP provincial budget that we are anywhere on track to a balanced budget next year. In fact, we see increased spending, increased taxation nearly everywhere we turn. Honourable Chair, we see, in plain sight the spending increase in this budget of $1.5 billion. I think we can accept that if that's those are expenditures to help grow the economy, that would play to the minister's plan for being on a track of balancing a budget. But with spending more money and seeing no additional results, it's really hard, just by basic fundamental facts, that we could see a balanced budget. It doesn't make sense if you don't have substantially more growth, but yet you have more spending. That doesn't balance. Honourable Chair, I'd like to ask the Minister, with seeing a $1.5 billion increase in spending in the budget, what measurable results are Manitobans going to have from this increase?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Just want to make sure that we're speaking clearly on the record here and responding to misstatements, or maybe the member misspoke when he said nobody believes us about our fiscal position. But I'll remind him, I would say some very qualified organizations would disagree with his commentary there. For example, DBRS, whose headline for their report was Balance Within Reach, or the Bank of Montreal, whose headline for their report on our budget was Surplus is Calling. So I'll put my money on these financial experts and their perspectives on the quality of our budget and what we put forward, and I'll put our trust in their perspective, and I think Manitobans would likely do the same over perspectives brought forward by the members opposite. In terms of, again, our overall spending and approach to management and of our cost structure, I can't help but want to just respond to say that we were left with a $2 billion deficit. And so I think that is obviously a very challenging place to have started. I'll remind the member, he's probably had the benefit of hearing me talk about the MNP report that we had developed shortly after we got in. The goal of that report, just to remind the member, was to have an independent take on that $2 billion deficit and to understand ultimately what happened and what led to that deficit number. And so, again, for the members' benefit, I'll share a bit about what that report said. MNP found with no uncertainty that there was a number of risks or decisions that were made that constituted a high level of risk. They identified that there were some, I will say, rosy projections as it relates to government revenues. I also identified that there were some extremely rosy projections regarding hydro revenues. They also identified that post-budget and before election, a number of major expense decisions were made that weren't factored in with the former government's previous report out at Q1 at the end of July before the election. So I think it's an important thing to sort of dwell on momentarily, even though it's probably not fun to hear about, that ultimately the former government went out at the end of July, 3 months before the election, told Manitobans what was entirely a fiction about our fiscal position. Again, when you look at hydro, there was a $500 million plus net income position that had been put forward. Hydro knew at that point their water was going to come nowhere close to that, probably off by hundreds of millions of dollars. We ended that fiscal year off target by hundreds of millions of dollars. That wasn't shared with Manitobans at that Q1 report out. And I think we just, again, it's important we're talking about fiscal management, transparency, all these things go together. It's concerning, and this isn't partisan to say, it's concerning that at the end of July, your team went out and told Manitobans that your fiscal position was hundreds of millions of dollars better than it was. And that is fact. And MNP, an independent accounting firm, again, which is, I think, does good work by anyone's measure, spoke to that in that report. And so, again, just important to remind everybody as to where we started and how it happened that we had a $2 billion deficit. In terms of our approach to fiscal management, again, I think the numbers speak for themselves. We're doing really good work, making progress, getting to the balanced budget commitment, the goal, next year. This year's budget, just in terms of expenditure, you spoke to what you framed as a concerning increase in expenditure. Well, I can share year over year, just through volume growth and price growth, governments can expect their costs to go up. But this year, relative to Q3 last year, we saw a 4.6% increase in expenses, and we're going to see a 9.7% increase in revenues. And it's on that basis of that delta between those two that we're positioning ourselves to deliver on the goal that we've set for ourselves and we committed to delivering on for Manitobans. Last thing I want to say before my time's up, the member alluded to what he's characterized as balanced budgets under the members opposite. What I'll say is that when Manitobans are experiencing horrific healthcare experiences in accessing healthcare due to massive cuts to healthcare, our kids were not getting the support they needed in schools, our municipalities were not getting the support they need. It's nothing to brag about that you deliver a balance if you're falling short on literally every single measure, because if you simply are willing to just slash expenditures in every department, it's not hard to balance. The question is, can you deliver fiscal sustainability while delivering what Manitobans sent us here to deliver on?
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Well, the Minister shared some snippets of what different agencies had said in some quotes, and I have one to share with the Minister, and it's from Moody's. And the report had said that the province's plan, and I quote, to slash annual deficits last estimated at more than $1.6 billion for the fiscal year that ended in March, does not appear in line to line up with the government's own economic growth projections. And economic growth leads to more tax revenue. So then in the minister's response, the response that we just heard from this minister, we heard that when I had asked, what are we getting for the additional $1.5 billion of expenditure in this budget? And the response from the minister, as everyone has just seen, is that costs go up as the population grows and the province grows. We have to spend more money. So we saw what the minister had said, and I don't know if I caught the exact point of increase in spending, but I think it was 4.7% is what the minister had just said, increase in spending. But we've also identified that we've seen only a 1.1% increase in economic growth. So if we plan for seeing a balanced budget next year, I don't think we just portray to the Manitoban voter, the average hardworking Manitoban that's out there paying their taxes and hoping that this government is looking out after their best financial interest, that those two figures line up. If spending is increased by 4.7% and our economy is only growing by 1.1%, the quote from Moody's seems to be on point, that it doesn't make sense that economic growth will equal government expenditures. And without that, I'd like the minister to explain how we could possibly see a balanced budget until the point when we can have economic growth equalized with government expenditure.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start out by just speaking to a comment that was made by the member, which seemed to suggest that he feels we're not getting any value for our government's investments, 1.5 billion in new spending. One thing I can speak to is $1 billion of that is on healthcare. And the member might know that his team did a lot of damage over 7.5 years in government to our healthcare system. I'm proud that over the last few years we have made massive investments in healthcare because that was the order of the moment due to the level of damage that had been done. We had healthcare workers fleeing the system. The member would know that. Closures of hospitals, closures of 3 ERs here in Winnipeg. Just a disaster by any measure. And so, yes, that 1.5 billion is creating huge value for Manitobans, and a large part of that investment is doing the work of continuing to repair the damage that was done by the members opposite during their tenure. And so we're proud to be making those investments, and a big part of the value being produced by these investments is new healthcare workers. And so we're proud that we brought in over 4,000 net new healthcare workers into the system to support Manitobans, again, after years of seeing people flee. And we would argue that those are unbelievably high-value investments because you can't grow your economy and do that kind of work unless you have a reliable healthcare system. Thank you so much, that people know is there when they need it. And so proud to be making an investment of that significance, and proud to be on a team that is focused on actually ensuring Manitobans can get the healthcare that they deserve to get access to. A couple points I want to identify. The member wrongly asserted, as his colleague did yesterday, and I'm happy to just clarify for him, the real GDP number for 2025 was 1.6%. Not, I think he said 1 or 1.1. That number was revised upwards and is now 1.6. So Manitoba was in the bottom third of the pack, but we were not last, as is being asserted. And of course, more good work to do in continuing to grow that, but important that we're clear and accurate here when we're speaking on the record. As it relates to the relationship he's trying to establish between those levels of growth and government revenues, government revenue growth is driven much more on the nominal GDP side. And so I can say that in 2025, estimated nominal GDP growth is 4.5%, and for 2026, estimated at 4.2%. So that's, I think, a much more important indicator as to what might lead to some revenue growth, not the numbers that were being referenced earlier. So happy to put some facts on the record about where Manitoba actually stood in terms of our GDP position in 2025, and hopefully that answers the question that the member posed.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and thank the Minister for that response. It changes some things, but it doesn't change the entire story. And I'd like to ask the Minister if the numbers don't align, the revenue with expenditure. Fundamentally, we don't have a balanced budget. So until that time, so we're still going to need, if we still see increased spending as we are in this budget, and it's been identified, I think no matter where it's spent, sure, we can say that $1 billion is additionally spent in healthcare. Are wait times improving? Do we see improved delivery in healthcare? I think that would be in estimates for healthcare, so I don't want to dive down deep into how poorly healthcare is actually performing under the current NDP government, because I don't think there's a single Manitoban that feels that healthcare is improving under their leadership. But fundamentally, we won't see a balanced budget until government revenue, matches government expenditures. And right now what the Minister is portraying doesn't. So we're going to need to see economic growth or increase in tax revenue. I don't think there is any other way. I know the minister has a background in business and economics as well, but I think it's quite simple and plain to show to Manitobans that there are only two ways of seeing a balanced budget when you project a certain level of expenditure. So in budget 2027 and what budget 2026 is lining up for would need to see either substantial economic growth, increase in tax revenue, or cuts to services. So which one of those is the minister presenting for the next year's budget?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. So just speaking to the question, which I appreciate, the bigger story here, which again, it's important to remind the member of, is the $2 billion deficit starting point. 1 year, 40% reduction down to $1.2 billion. This year's deficit post, $498 million, that's a 75% reduction. So that's the trajectory. And I think to answer his question, I'm not sure if he misheard me, but I want to just restate so it's clear. 4.6% growth on expenses, 9.7% growth on revenue. So back to your question about the sort of basic math and how does this work, that's how it works. Revenues exceeding expenditures, right? And the path that we're proposing is clearly outlined in budget for him to review if he wants to know more about how we're proposing those things will align next year. But I think something that's really worthwhile highlighting that does speak directly to what he's asking is the amazing work that's been done here in reducing our overall debt servicing obligations. So when we came in with the structure we inherited under the PCs, 9.9 cents in 23-24 of every dollar were going towards debt servicing. So that obviously represents a significant expense. What's happening this year? As a result of our deficit reduction work and the good work that we're doing, I think, in building strong relationships with credit rating agencies and investors, that is now down to 8.9 cents. What does that mean? That means we have 200 million, actually I think it's more like 240 million in additional dollars that we can use to invest in healthcare and education and making Manitoba into a safer place to live, among many other investments. That work and that we've done, we're going to see continued reduction in the scope of that debt servicing. Out to 27-28, I think we're forecasting that to go down to 8.5. That will mean that we'll have over $400 million in net new money that we're going to be able to put to use towards investing in the things that matter. So as a part of your question, I think it's important to not only talk about the overall structure here, which is seeing expense growth come under our revenue growth, but adding to that, we're seeing this remarkable reduction in the scope of our debt servicing. And I think that shows really impressive progress relative to where we were when we came into government. We inherited, again, a much more significant amount of our overall revenue was going towards debt servicing when we inherited the PC cost structure. Thanks to the work we've done, that's now gone down by almost 1% to 8.9, and we're going to see that continue to reduce as we move forward. So that also is unlocking a whole bunch of new dollars that we're going to be able to put to good use, and hopefully that helps the member understand a little more about how we're going to deliver on that goal for next year.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I can see the desire, but we've seen over the last couple budgets that there's been a gap between desire and reality. with the budgets of this NDP government. And I don't blame the minister. I think it's a direction of the province under this premier that there's very little to work with and very little will to achieve those desires and goals. This government has presented a budget last year projecting a deficit of $794 million. And keep in mind that last year's budget, there was two forms of the budget, contingency budget for looming trade war. There was concern of investment that needed to be made in different industries to prop up and stabilize them as we navigated economic uncertainty. That didn't come to reality. For the most part, the CUSMA agreement was undisturbed by our trade partners to the south, and we didn't really see the significant investment into industry that was claimed in the contingency budget. So we saw a $794 million projection. Today, the minister and the government is admitting that that deficit growing to a 1.6 roughly billion dollar deficit, more than double what Manitobans were told, and that's even more than the contingency budget that was presented by the minister. You know, that's not just a small miss. That's significant. So we, as we could buy that plan, and Manitobans could buy that plan last year, and the projected amounts to see the end in sight of debt spending by the province and a path towards a balanced budget, but we didn't see the results. And you know, I'd think that that's a fundamental failure in financial planning. So my question, Honourable Chair, is how did the government get it so wrong then? And now when we see warnings by organizations like Moody's saying that the projection is unrealistic for this year, they've got good reason to believe that, and I think Manitobans have good reason to believe that too. So could the minister answer how things had gone so wrong and why they won't go in the same direction this year?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the question. And you know, again, we'll talk about the work that's been done. So we started with that $2 billion deficit. First budget, we reduced that PC deficit down by 40%. Second budget, we did have extraordinary events that the member is no doubt familiar with. We had the most extreme wildfire season we've had in Manitoba in over 30 years. That had an unbelievably detrimental impact on over 30,000 Manitobans were displaced, and there were significant costs that were incurred ensuring that those Manitobans received the support that they needed during those difficult times. We hope that that was, again, a one-year extraordinary event that we don't want to ever see be repeated because of the impacts on Manitobans and, of course, the environmental destruction that was created. But that was an extreme wildfire event that led to expenditures that were over $350 million to provide the supports needed. On the hydro side, the member might be aware that hydro on any yearly basis can experience fluctuations in hydrology. The important question is, how are you budgeting and how are you approaching that question? Last year, just like this year, we took a very, I think, modest approach to forecasting hydro's net income. Their net income projections, as modest as they were ultimately off by an estimated $700 million. The reason for that is because we had the worst drought since 1941-42. So again, just going to let that sink in. Almost a period of 80 years, we hadn't seen hydrology issues of that scope. And ultimately that led to an enormous variance at Manitoba Hydro. I'll further share with the member, as somebody who is a student of hydro, one thing I've learned is that the reality is on any yearly basis at hydro, you can have these massive fluctuations, both positive and negative. And really we maxed out the potential on the negative side there. But again, that was built off of a modest net income projection. Ultimately, that's something that we do not expect to see repeated. Going forward, we're, again, this year, $498 million deficit. That's down 75% from the deficit we inherited, showing further progress. And, you know, when it comes to confidence in that and our ability to deliver on that, I'm proud to share, I think, some more quotes that the member might benefit from hearing. Here's another quote, or a quote from RBC. Manitoba is the 7th province to table its 2026 budget, and the new numbers look not as challenged as several others. The report goes on to note, Manitoba claims the smallest 26-27 deficit to GDP ratio is one of the few provinces charting a path to balance. I'll read a quote from BMO. Quote, the bottom line, Manitoba looks to be on track to achieve surplus by 27-28 despite a backdrop of elevated uncertainty. The province's diverse economic base and attractiveness for infrastructure projects leaves it well positioned to benefit from efforts to boost Canada's resilience. And the last quote I'll share from CIBC, quote, the medium-term projections show the government still achieving its objective of balancing the budget in fiscal 27-28 and maintaining that in the following fiscal years as well. So what we're seeing from the market, we're seeing from our major FIs in Canada, is a positive response to the numbers we've put forward in our last budget. And I just have to go back, the crux of the question asked and the attempt is to try to undermine, of course, the credibility of the work we're doing and leaning heavily on the result from last year. And again, I'll say to the member, one of the amazing things is that ultimately we've been able to continue, even in the face of those significant in-year challenges last year, to hold steady, hold strong, and to continue to keep Manitoba on a good path, even in light of those extreme challenges. And I think a really important detail is that even though there was a $700 million variance at hydro, there was a $350 million variance due to wildfire expenditures. Had we not had those expenditures, we would have been right on track with the budget, with the number we printed. So that's a very important thing to highlight. The member clearly knows that we don't have the capacity to determine the overall amount of rain coming down. He would know, though, that we do have the ability to determine a budget or a net income figure for hydro that is modest and reasonable, which is exactly what we did. So again, had it not been for those extraordinary events, we would have been right on track. Manitobans have every reason to trust our government and the numbers we put forward.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Last year, I'm sure we'll all remember that out of the infrastructure budget, expenditure for emergency measures was slashed, significantly slashed, and then we went into that disastrous wildfire season, the worst we've seen, and the damages and the costs that it put on to Manitobans and our provincial economy. So this year we didn't see an increase. We didn't see that rebound to the levels that were set into place under under our PC government. So some may question whether that be irresponsible or not of this government after seeing the devastation and the additional cost, some may argue unnecessary additional costs because of needing to be as defensive as we were instead of offensive in our wildfire combat operations. Why when we see $1.5 billion in additional expenditure, why would we not be budgeting additional funds for emergency measures so that we don't need to see that type of a cost on the backs of the Manitoba taxpayer?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Sure. So appreciate the question about the work that we're doing to make sure we keep Manitobans as safe as possible from the impacts of wildfires. I think this year we've brought in again reasonable dollars in budget to ensure that we have money there to respond to emergencies as they arise. There's a $50 million budget line in place. There's also a $100 million rev contingency there to respond to perhaps revenue losses that might occur as a result of natural disasters or otherwise. And there are other investments as well that are being made to support our ability to respond. I think one of the areas that I'm proud to talk a bit more about is the work that we've done to increase investments in preparedness. And I'm talking about year over year, like recurring investments that are going to help to ensure Manitobans stay safe. And so I'm going to talk a bit about those increases here. The member identified that there were no increases to EMO, so I'm happy to outline for him some of the major increases that we're bringing forward to help, again, keep Manitobans safer. So we have made in this budget a $1.2 million investment to add 19 firefighters to help improve response capability and to sustain preparedness levels and to help better coordinate between different levels of government and otherwise during wildfire events. There's an additional $1 million in new money. This is, again, structural, long-term funding year over year to add 15 more staff to EMO. So the member had said in his question, why didn't we make any new investments in emergency management? 15 more staff and $1 million a year additional funding to support that. There's $459,000 in new funding to support 4 more conservation officers to support wildfire work. $1.2 million to upgrade the Manitoba Wildfire Services weather information and fire mapping systems. So that's going to help with modeling and predictions and enable more lead time for evacuations. Of course, we made an announcement about investing in a new attack and fire base in Thompson. That's needed and I think very important, and we're currently in negotiations with that municipality on building that. We've invested more in expanding wildfire training and creating some more opportunities in partnership with Northern First Nations communities. Another $1.1 million for aerial firefighting services. And of course, there's a $75 million investment for 3 new water bombers that we have now ordered. The first plane is coming in 2031. Can't come soon enough, but unfortunately, there's a very long runway to get access to these things. So it's a good thing our government got in line because, again, for years, the former PC government did not take that important action to ensure that we had access to those kinds of those types of planes to do that important work. So I hope that this helps the members see that there have been extensive investments beyond just simply those having sort of dollars put aside for responding to emergencies. We are making the necessary investments, and I hope he agrees, to make sure that we're even more ready should we face another wildfire season like the last one, or ready for any wildfires that Manitobans might be faced with in the years to come. So again, we remain committed to continuing to make more investments, all with an eye on ensuring that we minimize the risks associated with wildfires and some of those horrible impacts that we saw last year.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Maybe I'll just clarify that a little bit more. In a previous response when we were talking about the revenue versus expenditures in the province, we were told that it was needed to be done. The increase in expenditures at a rate of approximately 4.7% because of just the growth of the province and the increased rate of costs for the province. Then we saw a $100 million budgeted line item and budgeted money for emergency measures under the previous PC government. The NDP, the new NDP government, held that for their first budget, and then last year had cut it in half. So we saw it go from $100 million down to $50 million. And then unfortunately, no blame to the government for sure, it's Mother Nature, a lot of the costs were borne by the reality of one of the most severe wildfire seasons that we've seen in Manitoba history. But after seeing that and the more than $300 million costs that had been on our province, the minister had just clarified the tremendous expenditures that they've seen. So $50 million, which was a cut of 50% to the budget, but then an increase of 1.2 million, 1,459,000, 1.2 million, and 1.1 million, and some of those expenditures, the 1.2 and the 1.1, are announcement commitments in the future with no dedicated commitment this year. So we see roughly a $2.75 million additional commitment outside of the $50 million, which still comes a long way from the $100 million. So I'd like to ask the minister why he would be comfortable with that large of a cut to our preparedness and readiness for another wildfire season, seeing as though we're only 1 year out. So we know that everyone understands that weather patterns and cycles don't generally change immediately overnight. So we've seen in the northwest corner above average snowfall. We've seen in central north where a lot of that wildfire had happened below average, and in the south, which I'm most familiar in my home communities, we've seen widespread devastating wildfires, again below normal drought-like conditions leading into the spring. So is it irresponsible, or is it just poor planning to have allowed that budget to be cut in half for this financial year?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. So happy to respond to this question, and maybe I'll just start by saying we're confident that we're ready for what comes, and as a government, I think we've made reasonable investments in preparing for whatever comes with emergency measures budgets at, again, $50 million and $100 million rev contingency. I just want to speak to this just briefly. The first budget we brought in, we did bring in a $50 million emergency line. And again, those dollars are there only to respond to emergencies. In that year, we only spent 30 from that line, and we let 20 lapse. Following year, we budgeted 50 million, and we had a $350 million expense as a result of it being a historic wildfire year. So those dollars are there. Of course, they're there to respond if needed. But the reality is that should we face extreme, unique sort of in-year challenges as we did last year, we will respond to them, and we will ensure we make those expenditures as needed to take care and support Manitobans. The question there is the amount reasonable? And I think, again, the examples I offered, that in our first year, we budgeted 50, underspent by 20, which just ended up lapsing, again, because these are only to be spent in the event of emergencies. I think that speaks to the nature of that budget line. Much more importantly, and I think this is really bears repeating again, is the importance of these investments we're making structurally in the long term, which are actually real investments in fire preparedness and readiness, as opposed to just socking away dollars in case you have an emergency, which may not be spent in any given year. Instead, again, we're not only ensuring that we have dollars budgeted if required to respond to emergencies, but we're also making very real structural long-term investments in fire readiness. I outlined those already, but again, quickly, it's great to have a chance to talk about this good work that we're doing. $1.2 million to add 19 firefighters, $1 million to add 15 more staff to EMO, $459,000 to support 4 more conservation officers, $1.2 million to upgrade Manitoba Wildfire Services weather information and fire mapping. These are real structural long-term investments. I hope the member can hear what I'm sharing here and can recognize why these investments are the kind of investments that Manitobans really want to see us making in fire preparedness. This isn't just about having dollars in a bank account to ensure that we can respond if something happens. It's about actual long-term investment and making sure we're genuinely in the best position possible to respond to these crises should they emerge. And so, again, having said that, we continue to be ready with an emergency expense line, along with a $100 million revenue contingency. Manitobans can count on us being ready should we face more challenges this year and in future years. Sorry.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'd like to move on from here, but wanted to paint a picture on the projection for both revenue and expenditures for the province, and identify some of those largest outliers. So we've seen that the largest outliers on both sides would be the devastating wildfire season for expenditures and a reduction of revenue for drought on Manitoba Hydro. When I appreciate the minister identifying that in the first year, $32 million out of 50 was spent. That was a cut of half of the budget from $100 million to 50, and then we saw $300 million. So if we were to use rough math, a more realistic average there would be the $100 million that our previous government had budgeted. But nonetheless, that's the justification of this government and this minister. But to make it clear, we see that right now we've got big reliance on not having any unforeseen expenditures, and we also we're betting everything. We're betting the fiscal farm on Manitoba Hydro becoming profitable overnight. So we see that the budget has been showing a pattern over the last couple of years, and now a continuation of that. An overpromise, an underdeliver, and then revise the numbers later. So I think the minister's done a good job at portraying what the desire is of the financial position of our province, but we're not seeing the reality. So I'd ask if I'm clear on that. We need to have the projected revenue of Manitoba Hydro. That's one of our largest dependencies. And without that, we're going to be left with a very similar situation as we had been this year. So if we see a similar year, a drought type year for this summer season, we could be seeing, instead of a $500 million deficit, we could be hedging around that $1.6 million again. Just to be clear, if we were to see a similar hydro year to last year, we've built no other contingency into this projected budget.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the question. I'll just speak to one item first here, which is the question about, again, the reasonableness of our investments in emergency preparedness and emergency expenses. So I think it's worth sharing. I already shared that in our first year we budgeted 50 million and we spent 30, so 20 lapsed. The year before, which was the last PC budget, there was only 29 million in expenditures. So again, we had every reason to believe that if we're looking at recent history, reasonable analysis would suggest 50 million is not an unreasonable amount to have in place for emergency readiness. Again, 29 million expenditures in 23-24, 30 million the next year. I think the member can see why the number that we put forward is reasonable if you look at recent history. I think the other thing he spoke about was hydro, and he's repeating the false claim that we heard yesterday as well from his colleague, and I understand they're here to maybe do politics, but I'll share with him some information that hopefully will help him understand the reality on the ground a little more clearly. This year, when it comes to Manitoba Hydro's net income position, we've estimated, or there's a $140 million net income target that they have and that we have included as part of our budget. That $140 million net income position and that forecast is based off existing reservoirs, where they are right now today, which I can share with the member, of course, are lower than average. And so that net income number reflects and bakes in the existing position that we find ourselves in leading off of last year, which as I've shared, was a historic drought year that we faced. And of course, we had the corresponding impacts. And so if you take that into account, you can see that the net income position Hydro's brought forward and ultimately we've brought forward is eminently reasonable. It's based off of our existing position, which as I've shared is our reservoirs are lower than average. So it's, I think, a very realistic outlook on where hydro is likely to be. But again, we can only control so much in terms of the amount of rain that we see come into Manitoba or through our water, through the various water tables that we have coming into Manitoba. And so I think an important piece that I'd add to that, one of the important things we've done to help ensure hydro is in an improved fiscal position is we eliminated the capital tax that they used to pay to government. We did that last year. Last year we also reduced the debt guarantee fee that hydro was paying to government. This year we're reducing that even further. The net impact of those changes, the elimination of the capital tax and the reduction of the debt guarantee fee, is seeing over 200 million in new dollars being left in hydro's coffers. So we've taken those actions to help improve hydro's fiscal position. That move, in addition to, I think, a very modest approach to forecasting their net revenue for this year, net income, I think puts us in a position where we are, to the best of our ability, forecasting a reasonable landing place for hydro this year. So to in any way infer or suggest that we're banking on hydro to have some kind of an unusually good result this year, or that we're not budgeting realistically, is patently false. And I think it's important to just reflect on what I just shared about the important work that the experts at Hydro are doing and that they've done to put us in a place where we have the best line of sight on our net income possible. Last year's result, again, was a result of an extraordinary year, which was the worst drought year since 1941-42. Do we expect that to be repeated this year, as the member is suggesting, is a risk? No, that was, again, the worst year in almost 80 years, or over 80 years. That is not something we're expecting to see repeated. Again, nature will do what nature does. So what we've done is, on our side, we've ensured that we've brought forward the most reasonable, responsible net income projection possible. And while we're doing it, we're leaving more dollars in hydro's coffers to make sure that they can stay fiscally healthy. Again, we've done more this year by further reducing that debt fee that we were charging. And again, we're proud to be doing that work to make sure hydro can continue to stay sustainable for years to come while they deliver the important energy that Manitobans need.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I was going to move on from that until I heard the Minister's justification is a simple sleight of hand. you know, the minister had said that the position of Manitoba Hydro and the predictability is going to be increased significantly because of the elimination of the capital tax on Manitoba Hydro, essentially saying, you know, that it's taking money from one pocket and putting it into another, and that's going to change the predictability of the financial position of our province. When in fact, you know, that capital tax, and I welcome the minister to correct me if he thinks that I'm wrong, was transferring money from Manitoba Hydro to the provincial government in general revenue, which we're considering the revenue of Manitoba Hydro as part of the revenue for the province. So to convey that to the people of Manitoba, that you know, the sleight of hand is going to make a financial difference to the position of our province, I think is misleading. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul. Doesn't make a difference at the end of the day for Manitobans and the predictability of our budget. So I'd ask the minister if in fact it makes a financial bottom line difference, and the bottom line is where we look for a balanced surplus or deficit, making that change does not change the feasibility or the viability, fiscal viability of Manitoba Hydro.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So I want to start by just being really clear that the member is entirely wrong in the assertion that these changes have not created some type of benefit for hydro. I would invite him to read the GRA, which was recently put forward, and I'm sure maybe he's taken a look at that already. If he has, he might have missed the sections that referred to the impacts of those changes that we made and how that has significantly improved Hydro's financial position. And so while we do operate in a broad summary government environment, these changes were bringing significant benefit to Hydro and their overall position. And I think really importantly are facilitating them doing the work that wasn't done for many years, for 7.5 years, specifically investing in the infrastructure that Manitobans need to make sure we have access to reliable energy. You know, that GRA and the IRP that was recently released by Hydro that we were proud to stand behind outlines the significant investments that we're making in energy infrastructure over the years to come. And ultimately, those new dollars that we're leaving in Hydro allow Hydro to make investments in renovations to or fixes to bipole that are going to be significant to ensure that that line, which is quite old, gets the repair that it needs, the attention it needs. Obviously an incredibly important piece of infrastructure. And then in addition to that, of course, all the new energy that we're proposing to bring online, and the approaches for that have been outlined in the IRP. These are incredibly important investments. And the best, I think, the impact of that $200 million that we're keeping back in Hydro is that not only can Hydro make those investments that need to be made and do that in a way that ensures they stay financially healthy, but it also allows them to do that in a way that ensures rates remain affordable. And so the impact of that change, I don't think I can overstate how incorrect the member is in stating that he feels that that isn't having some type of an impact in terms of hydro's net income position or their overall fiscal position and their ability to invest. It, in fact, is underpinning their ability to continue making those generational investments while we continue to keep rates low. And, I would argue that hydro rates are something that all Manitobans care deeply about. The member would know, as a government, we've placed a significant amount of focus on doing everything we can to keep rates low, including these investments in hydro by ensuring that they can keep more of those dollars in their coffers, in addition to repealing the bill that the members opposite had brought in during their time, which was Bill 36. It had a number of names, but ultimately that bill was focused on moving rate setting from the Public Utilities Board over to the cabinet table. So we know that for years there was, again, a number of, we'll call them unique approaches to raising costs on Manitobans, raising hydro rates. We know how impactful energy costs are on the average Manitoban's wallet. And so, again, these investments are important in helping to manage rate pressures, while hydro can do the work that they need to do in making significant investments that hadn't been made for many years under the members opposite, in ensuring we have state of good repair with our existing distribution, transmission infrastructure, but also in ensuring we have the firepower we need to make those significant new investments in new capacity while we keep energy affordable. So very, very important, I think, change that we made. And again, I'd invite the member to go to that GRA to get maybe a stronger sense of why those investments were important and why they are actually directly beneficial to Manitoba Hydro.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I think it concerns me, and I think it concerns many Manitobans who have more of a long-term memory and remember the last time that the NDP were in government and how they had nearly bankrupted the Crown Corporation. Mismanagement, overspending, and poor planning had led to Bipole project being a complete financial disaster for the province, as well as the Kiosk generation project that took nearly 7 years for the previous PC government to straighten out. It was an absolute mess that the previous NDP government structurally had put Manitoba Hydro, along with the poor planning, irresponsible decisions in financial investment with those hydro projects. So, when we look at Manitoba Hydro and the issues with Manitoba Hydro, it seems to be an easy scapegoat for this minister and this government. I don't think all of the loss that the Manitobans are bearing through Manitoba Hydro can be attributed to water levels, drought levels. These are issues that the NDP, when they were last in government, had established, and now they're going back to their old ways. They talk about expanding generation capacity, while we see that Manitoba Hydro is carrying over $25 billion in debt. That's it's nice that it's hidden away, and we don't need to see it front and center. But in reality, as the minister had said, that the capital tax is beneficial so that Manitoba Hydro is able to carry more debt or have access to more debt for further investment. These are things that Manitobans should be concerned about, because this is a Crown Corporation which we all can agree has great value to our province. But there's some serious issues here when the Crown Corporation, Manitoba Hydro, which we're now very dependent on in this 2026 budget, to carry the revenue of our province, and we're hoping for a net profit this year. We see that Crown Corporation is now carrying more debt than half of the countries in the entire world. And that's a fact. Manitoba Hydro carries more debt than half of the countries in the entire world. That should be alarming to the minister. That should be alarming to the premier, the rest of the NDP government, and every Manitoban. So, my question to start, and I don't want to dwell on Manitoba Hydro. Hopefully, we can move on from here. But since it's such a significant portion of the loss that we had seen last year, and since it makes up so much of the potential revenue for this year's budget, and we saw that was overshot last year, I'd like to ask the minister, how realistic are the numbers this year for the net profit for Manitoba Hydro, knowing that there's much more at play financially than just drought conditions, and when would Manitobans be able to see further investment to expand capacity in Manitoba Hydro?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. So just want to respond to what the member is claiming here, which is that there's a significant reliance on hydro net income. I thought I did a reasonable job earlier of helping him to understand why the net income amount is very modest and built off of a position that reflects our lower water levels. But to his claim that we're heavily reliant on this as part of our overall revenue picture, $140 million net income or revenue for Manitoba or for hydro represents 0.5% of our overall revenues. So that doesn't really square with his claim there. I think it's important to just speak to those words he put on the record. In terms of the question he's asking again, which was like what is the level of credibility or accuracy of that net income projection? We have a lot of confidence in the amazing professionals and leaders at Manitoba Hydro who do the hard work of water forecasting and looking to develop these projections. These, I think, are some of the best and incredibly talented group of people we have at Hydro. And we have confidence that when they give us data and share projections and look to help us understand what they expect to see as a net income position, that they're doing that on a basis of credibility, and they're doing that on a basis of data, and that they're very well informed. And so again, we have confidence that the number we've put forward is both modest and reasonable, that it is in fact in no way something that we're reliant on.
The hour being 5 p.m. Committee rise. Call in the Speaker.
Sorry, Jeff.
The hour being 5 p.m. This House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 1:30 p.m. on Monday.